Hey there, everyone. This interview I conducted with Steve Jude was going to have a segment covering his time working as the lead producer on The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD. But due to the fact that Nintendo are extremely protective of their intellectual properties, such as Zelda, Steve wanted to take a better safe than sorry approach and asked that we not include anything to do with the game. I chat with him about some of the many other titles he's worked on, though, and more through his storied career. So I hope that even in spite of this, you enjoy the interview. Thanks a lot. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Kiwi Talks. My guest today is a well-respected man in the game industry. He's worked on notable franchises such as Zelda, Borderlands, Deus Ex, Star Wars, and more. I could keep going on, but time is of the essence. So I'd like to welcome Steve Jude. How are you doing?
I'm good, Reese. How are you?
Good.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for taking time out.
Of course.
I'm sure you're a busy man.
A little, yeah. But, always got a bit of time for something special like this.
Yeah. Before we get into it, just as a bit of an icebreaker, I do want to know, why is Northlane your favorite band of all time?
Okay. So yeah, I'm a bit of a metalhead.
Yeah.
As you say, a bit of a headbanger. Yeah, I've followed that band since they came out, and they had a different singer. They were much heavier. And that's when I fell in love with them. Yeah, it was just the groove, the tone, basically I just enjoy any kind of music that's heavy and catchy. And they were that. And you could argue they're a little bit ahead of their time. Some people would disagree, but some new metal elements as well, which was kind of like my introduction to heavy music. Yeah, and I've just followed their whole career. I've seen them multiple times live as they tour around the country. And yeah, when Adrian, their previous singer, left after like the second album, they brought on a new singer, Marcus Bridge, and he was just awesome. And there was a lot of doubts about whether he could match the vocal style of the previous singer, especially his harsh vocals, because he had a lot of range in his his harsh vocal style. But Marcus, while it took him a little while to get comfortable, I suppose, he is like light years better than Adrian. I'm sorry, Adrian, if you read this or see this, but yeah. But I love you too, man. And yeah, like they've released a lot of music. I just love them to death. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. So when you're working at your desk,
mm-hmm.
Do you have music cranking in your headphones? Or are you the type of person that has to just focus in on what you're doing and have no noise?
Kind of depends, right? And the answer is like not really these days, because ever since I moved into a production role and became a producer, I'm just too busy. But say if I'm writing a document or something that's a bit mindless, then yeah, I will throw on some tunes. But yeah, it's a bit rarer these days than it used to be, say when I was in QA, or like when I started in the industry. So yeah.
So what would you say is the most important aspect of project management?
Look, I think there's many important aspects. Like leadership, of course. Like I think you need to, embody exemplary leadership skills in order to oversee the successful completion of a project. And that's because you need to be able to inspire and support your team members through every kind of step of the way while you're defining the roadmap to success. Patience is another one, because the reality is that no project takes place in a straight line, and things rarely go exactly as planned, right? So, most projects, they have an element of challenge, and so does guiding a team through those challenges. And very few challenges are solved by rushing them. So, because the reality is that video games take a long time to complete successfully. And being patient also means you need to be empathetic towards your team members and be able to keep a cool head under pressure. It's especially important in terms of implementing new processes or onboarding a new person. as well, as you either have to adjust your entire team to a new process or adjust a new team member to the team and the way they work. So without patience, you won't be able to do that, since those things take a lot of time to finally stick. And there's other important and obvious aspects too, like organization, time management, risk management. I would say though, another big one in my view is a sense of humor.
Really?
Yeah, I would, because I think that I think humor can go a long way in relieving stress for you and your team, and can help you lighten the mood during tense situations. It makes it easier to approach the problem-solving process with clarity and levity. And just because you and your team work hard, it doesn't mean the vibe has to be ultra serious all the time. And it's for that reason I like to weave my own personality and sense of humor into all the projects I work on. But your question was, what is the most important aspect of project management? And above all else, my answer would be communication. Because in order for projects to be successfully managed, you need to be incredibly adept at communicating efficiently and effectively with your teams. I think it's crucial that you're able to effectively share your vision, the goals, ideas, issues. And in today's remote work environment, this can include utilizing communication tools like Slack for quick and direct messaging, Zoom, Teams, and Skype for video conferencing. But it also extends to your ability to create an environment where employees feel safe to communicate openly.
So how does that work when you're working in conjunction with different teams, right? Because the animators will have different tasks or different stressful situations compared to artists, which is different to designers and so forth. But do you have like a one size fits all, or do you kind of adjust your method depending on the group?
Are you talking about being patient or something else?
Well, I'm patient, but in terms of managing people, I suppose.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, everyone's different. There's no like one fit all kind of rule for everyone, I'm trying to think of an example, but so you've got your people like to use Jira. Actually, not many do, and I wish they did. But if someone is going to work better by sticky notes, then I'm happy to adapt and work with them that way, even though it's painful. But it's all about keeping people happy, right? And yeah, as for the different task types when it comes to the different disciplines like animation or programming and whatnot, yeah, all those bits of the puzzle need to fit together. So it's important. Like I'll go back to the communication bit again. It's important to bridge that gap between the different disciplines being design, art, programming, and make sure that the trickle down effect is all going to jive properly and it'll all come together correctly. And that people, and the remote work thing is did make it more difficult to nurture those kinds of relationships.
So did you always intend to be in the position you're in? Did you always want to be a producer, do the whole project management thing even when you were doing QA? Or is it just one of those things that's just an organic thing and you just kind of go with the flow?
So when I was in high school, right, a lot of people don't know what they want to do, right? And I was one of them. So when anyone would ask me, what do you want to do with yourself? Or, because I was such a massive video game fan, like ridiculous, like a comically large video game fan. And I still am, although I don't get to play them as much as I'd like.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Yeah. I would answer by saying, I just want to be involved in games. And even if that means putting the stickers on the cartridges, I would be happy doing that. So my first job ever was at Time Zone in Surfers Paradise, because I used to live in Queensland, which is like an arcade video
Yeah.
game arcade. I'm sure you've
Yeah.
heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been to a
So
few.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was a game attendant there. Had my little swipe card. When not many people around, I jump on Daytona and stuff. It was a fun job. Like it was a really fun job. Didn't pay that well, but it was fun. And while I did that, I studied at Quantum College in Brisbane, who I think now are SAE Institute.
Yeah.
But I was part of the first kind of class to do the degree, Bachelor of Interactive Entertainment. So when they first brought that out, it wasn't even like accredited, so it wasn't supported by HEX or anything. I had to get a personal loan to pay for it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but it was only like 16 grand then, but now it's like over 30.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And I majored, you could major in, I think, programming or animation, and I did animation, but I wasn't very good at it. I enjoyed it though. I did enjoy it. Anyway, I completed that degree just because, I was living on the Gold Coast and commuting to Brisbane, and some of these lectures were at like 8 a.m. or something. So I'd have to be on the
Isn't that-
train.
Isn't
like
that an
so.
hour and a half from Gold Coast to Brisbane?
Yeah,
One
about
way?
that. About that, yeah. So
So
I'd
you
have
were
to get,
commuting there each way an hour and a half to study
yeah,
every
yeah.
day, 5
Well,
days a week.
well, here's the thing, right? Like, only if there was like an 8 a.m. lecture or something, right? Which wasn't every day, but I couldn't keep that up even every few days because I'd have to get up before the sun rises. So I didn't go to many 8 a.m. lectures, right? So yeah. Anyway, I just scraped through. I think I got like a pass conceded, but I've got my degree. I got the
Good
thing.
man.
Yeah. Yeah, but it led me on the path to my first job, which was a QA tester at Krome Studios in Brisbane. Who did Tyler Tasmanian Tiger, which kind of put them on the map. 3D platformer game, Australian game featuring a Tasmanian tiger, believe it or not. Yeah, and I remember interviewing. It was like April 2005. And I thought it went well. They had this test where you had to make a cup of tea. And it's like, you write down the steps of how you make a cup of tea. And
What?
I think it was like their process of how to determine how methodical a thinker you are when it comes to testing games. Like, do you think of all the steps? For example, like when you're writing the reproduction steps of a bug, are you not going to miss anything?
Oh, right.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
anyway, yeah. So I was racking my brain doing that, and I forgot to boil the water. But anyway, didn't seem to matter. And then we were just talking about stuff, and right at the end, the QA manager at the time who was interviewing me, he said, "Oh, is there any reason why you don't think you'd be able to come to work?" Or, and I didn't know what to say, but at the same time as being a big, I was about to say wrestling, and I will, a big video game fan, I was a big wrestling fan, right?
Yeah.
Stone Cold, The Rock, all that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
That was my era.
Nice. So I said, and I'm glad I did, but it could have backfired. I said, well, if the WWF comes into town, or the wrestling comes into town, then yeah, maybe. And at that point, the hiring guy was like, "Oh, you're a wrestling fan? Oh man, I'm a huge wrestling fan." And we're just talking about wrestling for a bit. And anyway, the interview wrapped up, shook their hands, and then the hiring guy leant into me and said, "You can be quietly confident." So I was like, "All right, I'll take that." Nice. And I was like, just on a high for the next few days, and then I got the call up and I got the job, and the rest is history.
That's so cool though, because considering how much focus there is on actual degrees and the actual degree itself at the university, but there's a lot of stuff you can actually learn just through doing it, right? Particularly
Oh,
these days, right? With
yeah, yeah.
YouTube and
Oh man.
yeah,
Yeah.
all the facilities you can access information and
Yeah.
tutorials. Like
Oh,
we didn't have it back in our day.
no, no way. No. Like, man, imagine if you had YouTube when you went through high school. Like,
Yeah, it would have been
the
amazing.
hell? It'd been easy as. No, yeah, that's so true, man. Like, I think the hard truth is that if you've been to university and you've got yourself a degree and you're an academic and but then you've got someone who didn't go to university, he spent years in his mum's basement and he's made games, um, and he's done well with them and he's talented, they're gonna hire him, or them, he or her, them.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's pretty much the case with any sort of creative role, right? Any
Mm.
like art, animators,
Yeah,
musicians.
like
But
it's
it's more about the
practical.
portfolio, isn't it, than the actual
Yes,
degree in and of
100%,
itself. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, so my advice to anyone who's like trying to get into the games industry is just make something, or do, like, if you're a designer, write a design, make a prototype. That's the best way in, because it not only does it show you're interested, but you're committed and it's something you want to do. You're passionate about it. Um, yeah, yeah, that's kind of my answer to that.
Yeah. Do you have a specific project that you're most proud of or that you enjoyed the most working on? You
Um,
can just say all of them if you don't know.
I've really enjoyed being part of all the games I've been lucky enough to work on throughout my career. Some highlights in particular, and I think you touched on some of them, but was, yes, Star Wars: The Force Unleashed, Deus Ex: Human Revolution, Director's Cut, Borderlands, the pre-sequel, The Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword HD, and Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition.
Yep.
But I think the project I've enjoyed being a part of the most, though, would have to be Lego 2K Drive, which is the last game I worked on and that we just launched last month, in collaboration with 2K Games and Visual Concepts.
Is there something specific as to why that game?
I think it was so challenging, right? It was the most challenging project I've ever done, in my life. And for my whole team, it was. Um, and that's probably not the answer you're expecting as to why, it was the project I enjoyed the most. But I really did, right? And it was so challenging for many reasons. Like, we had to work with Visual Concepts, who were developing the mainline game on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, while we handled Gen 8, which is PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, PC with Steam and Epic, and then Nintendo Switch. So a lot of platforms. Um, so it just required so much concentrated effort to pull off. But moreover, it was one of the first projects that we've done at Tantalus. At least, I can say it wasn't our bread and butter, the type of development, because it was parallel development, simultaneous ship, which is not what we're used to. We'll typically take a game from, say, 10 years ago, and remaster it. And that we'll add quality of life improvements, we'll improve the graphics, make it run better, and it will be a static thing, right? You'll come in the next day and it's exactly as you left it. Whereas working on Lego, because there's so many moving parts, it was such a massive, massive game. It's a open world racing game where a lot like Mario Kart, but open world.
Open world, yeah.
Yeah, where you could build your own vehicles out of Lego bricks to your heart's content, and then race them, against each other, race against each other. So anyway, yeah, it was just incredibly challenging because of the different style of development, but also just because the scope of it was so big, but also the time zone. Like, it was completely opposite, really. The start of our day is the end of theirs. Our what is it? Our Friday's their Saturday. think I always get that wrong.
Yeah,
But
yeah. So I mean, because I often have to do that as well. I set up an interview with someone from America, and I have to remember they're a day behind us. Yeah, they might be a few hours ahead, but they're a day behind. So I understand what you
yeah,
mean.
yeah. So, we really had to utilize Slack, and just up the communication to, maintain that kind of transparency. Because we're on the other side of the world, right? Like I'm sure early on they were probably like, what are these guys even doing? Like we just got to trust them. But yeah, but I think that the biggest challenge, in fact, I know, was the Nintendo Switch, because trying to port a PlayStation 5 game to the Switch is so hard, when you get all these things going on. Like it's a multiplayer game, 8 races, split screen. It's just so much going on, all the physics and stuff, breakable cars, and all the debris, and just so when we first got it running on the Switch, it ran like a dog. Like it was just, and it took forever to finally get it up to where, well, we didn't get it to where it needed to be until right at the end, but we were just optimizing like crazy, but all the big wins we got through early. So it was just all micro optimizations, like probably from the halfway point onwards. And then we had a lot of different teams and developers come in and help us, kind of keep improving it. But because it was a fluid kind of beast, in that constantly things were getting added, new content, features, the UI is changing. Like it's just, so you would spend all this time making all these improvements. You'd buy back some frame time. You'd make some memory gains, and then you'd come in the next day and they're all kind of ripped out from under you, and it's actually worse than where it was before. And that wasn't all the time, and I don't hold this against visual concepts at all. Like, they have a job to do. We just have to accept that risk, right? And so we did. And but yeah, anyway, lots of challenges, that one. But I think that's why it's the one I've enjoyed being a part of the most. But also because everyone's just so nice, and they're just such fantastic people over there to work with. I just hope that we get another chance to collaborate in the future, because for me, like I just learned so much. I know that my team learned an awful lot, and we'll be able to take those learnings into our next projects. And for that, I'm like extremely grateful.
And the thing is, you're still quite early in your career as well. So it's just an upward trajectory.
Am I? It's nearly 20 years.
Yeah, but you're young still, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter.
I'm
20
40.
years, 20 years young. There you go.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, 40 in August. Jeez, I don't like saying that. But yeah, I suppose so, man. And yeah, but to answer your question from before, I am where I want to be.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm good at my job. I feel like it's what I want to do. Because I love working with people. I love surrounding myself with experts, because I learn a lot from them. I'd love to be a bit more technically minded, be a bit more of a technical producer down the line. And I just learn so much each day just from being alongside all these really talented developers. Yeah, so yeah, I think I'm where I want to be.
That's cool. That's cool. One thing I wanted to ask you about was Deus Ex Human Revolution and adapting that game for the Wii U Gamepad. You did a phenomenal job on that game.
Oh yeah,
I remember playing it, and with the systems that you use with the Wii U Gamepad. Do you remember that process and how it was?
I was the QA lead on Deus Ex Human Revolution. This is when I worked for Tantalus the first time.
First time,
yeah. This is my second time around, but this time as senior producer. but yeah, so working on Deus Ex, which was the director's cut version of Human Revolution for the Wii U. Yeah, so from a more functional perspective, we used the Wii U Gamepad to create a brand new augmentation called the Neural Hub. And because one criticism we heard was that players of the original game, just straight Human Revolution, wanted to know how much health enemies had and what loot they carried before taking them on. And the game's smart vision augmentation, which allows players to see enemies through walls, and that we extended that and fused it with the gamepad, which resulted in the Neural Hub. So now on Wii U, you can use the gamepad to see enemy health and armor type, the heavy, medium, or light, as well as loot. And the idea was that this will let players plan their moves better, because you can check loot, you'll be able to identify a target who's carrying a pocket secretary, which may contain the code for a locked door you're after, or decide not to go into a room because it's packed with heavies with loads of hit points. And we also use the gamepad to improve the immersion of the game, because we found with its touchscreen, it was closer to the vision of Deus Ex, where you're someone who is augmented and you have systems implemented in you that give you the edge in combat in all situations. So you can use the gamepad to navigate the menus, to display the map, the augmentation system, the inventory. And you have the impression when playing that the Wii U gamepad is part of Adam Jensen.
Yeah.
And one of his useful augmentations. There's swipe controls too. So one new feature as well called the grenade throwback that allows Jensen to equip a proximity detector that alerts him to a nearby grenade. So if an enemy chucks a grenade at you, the gamepad will vibrate and you can swipe the touchscreen to pick it up and lob it back. By default, the touchscreen, that's Jensen's radar. And it's sort of a hybrid between the main radar and the 2D map. And you could open the 2D map on the gamepad to use the stylus to scribble notes, which would then be reflected on your main screen radar. So players can use the feature to draw out approaches in particularly tricky areas. And you can also use the touchscreen for the hacking minigame, using your fingers to progress and punching codes. And for weapons that have a scope, such as the sniper rifle, you can use your television to center on your target and then enter a precision mode using the touchscreen, which displays the crosshair.
Yeah. How hard was it to test that though? Do you remember the most common bugs?
I'm drawing a blank on that. I don't recall there being too many bugs with that, but I'm sure there were.
That's a compliment. That's a compliment though, if you don't remember.
well, I think the mantra, at least mine, is, please test what you're doing before you implement it. And the guys at Tantalus definitely do that. But I'm not saying that there were no bugs.
Oh, no, for sure. But I'm saying,
if
there was a game-ending bug or a bug that was just super, super annoying, I'm pretty sure you'd remember it, right?
Oh, yeah.
It would be like the bane of your existence.
Yeah. But you're just asking about the UI and the gamepad and how that bug's to do with that, right?
Yeah. Because obviously you would have had to do so much testing to the point it probably got monotonous.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Although, so because at Tantalus, because we're a porting studio, we do have the whole game more or less, or we will once we've got it running on whatever platform. But traditionally, because I have a background in traditional game development, so especially early on, when you're starting out on a game, you're not testing the game, you're testing a part of a level over and over and over and over and over again. So that's pretty monotonous, But it's just part and parcel, I think.
Are you pretty settled now? Because you've been here, there, and everywhere, it seems. I mean, you've worked in Melbourne, you've worked in Brisbane, you've worked in Canberra, Sydney, and you did some stuff in Wellington as well, didn't you? In Auckland?
Not in Wellington. I did work in Auckland, but it was very brief.
It was like 6 months, wasn't it?
No, it was 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Yeah, so maybe I'll just quickly track my path. So 5 years at Krome, GFC hit 2010, lost my job, as did everyone else, more or less.
Yeah.
That's when I went to Tantalus the first time. I was there for 1 year, still in QA, and then I got picked up by 2K Australia in Canberra, where I worked on Borderlands, the pre-sequel. They just finished Bioshock Infinite when I joined. And I was there for nearly 2 years, and that studio sadly closed. And then I took a little bit of a sabbatical, and then I joined. Oh, well, yeah, I took a sabbatical, and I did go to New Zealand, but the South Island, but just for a holiday, because I made some really good friends out of that job at 2K, and we decided to spend a little bit of our severance money to get a camper van over there and drive around the South Island. So we hit a lot of little cool towns. Queenstown. We hiked a glacier. Took a helicopter up to Franz Josef Glacier and hiked that. That was fun. Great time. It wasn't long enough though. Maybe not even a couple of weeks, but some great memories from that trip. And anyway, so I came back and staying in Sydney with my mum for a little while because we don't get to see each other often. And then I started getting itchy feet. I needed a job. So I started putting the feelers out. And that's when Gameloft New Zealand reached out to me. And it was for a production role. And I was like, yeah, I mean, sounded good. I'd heard of Gameloft. They're a good, well-known company. Mobile games, though. It's not really...
mobile games, yeah.
Would have preferred to stay in PC console, but willing to give anything a go, right? So anyway, they offered me the job, but then they were like, can you start in like 2 weeks? I think it was. And I was just like, oh, what? So essentially I had to I sold my car on the cheap. I just uprooted my whole life. I moved over there really suddenly. And this was in December, middle of December in 2015. So I remember I got there and I'm sitting there and I'm at the studio and it was all good. And I'm meeting everyone and I'm starting to get to grips with stuff. And I'm like, hang on, can I go home for Christmas? Because spend time with the family Christmas. And they're like, yeah. So they flew me back home, did that, and then I came back again. And by this point, it was maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks in, and then 3 or 4 weeks later, they closed that studio. And they
What?
So there were people in the air just ready to start their new jobs there at the studio. So it was kind of it was pretty perplexing. I had some guys from head office fly in, and it was a whole ordeal. Something about I don't know, studio wasn't profitable for 5 years or something. I was just, what? So anyway, I did lose out on a bit of money from that because I literally just signed a lease.
Literally just moved, yeah.
Well, yeah, but I just moved and had all my stuff about to get onto a boat to come across, and I literally just signed a lease on a new apartment, literally the day before or something. So I lost out on a bunch of money from that. But anyway, I did go to Wellington after that, but I didn't work there. However, I did apply to a position at Magic Leap in Wellington, which went well. However, they were taking a long time to get back to me. But within a few days of that interview, Gameloft Australia called me, and they're based in Brisbane.
Mm.
And they basically said, look, do you just want to come here and do what you were doing there, but just do it for us? And at first I was thinking, are you just going to shut that down though? This...
Yeah.
But after waiting on it for a bit, I had the contract I needed to sign. I just had to go with the bird in the hand, because Magic Leap, they're like, yeah, it's going well, but we're just going to be this long and we're talking to these people. And I'm just, okay, I've got to just pull the cord here. So anyway, I took that role and I worked at Gameloft Australia for nearly 4 years. Maybe I did meet 4 years. And then there was some restructuring that happened. I lost after the last project I worked on there, which was Ballistic Baseball for Apple Arcade on iOS and Mac OS and tvOS. Yeah, there's some restructuring that went on. I think they severed about a third of the studio. Don't quote me on that, but yeah. So, and I was just one of them that got laid off. So that was right towards the end of 2019, and yeah. So that was near Christmas. So yeah, I just like kind of hung out with family, and then early in the new year, I just sent a an email to my old boss at Tantalus. They weren't advertising. I just said, I think the subject was producer reaching out or something like that. And I just said, hey, if you need someone, I'm keen. I'd love to come back. Something along those lines. And he responded saying, yeah, hey Steve, yeah, actually we do need someone. Like there's a lot going on. Like when are you in Melbourne next? So I had to, and Joss is probably gonna love hearing this, but I lied to him. I said, oh, I'm actually gonna be in Melbourne this weekend because of some other reason that wasn't true. And then I just hopped a flight and I was there. I actually interviewed with another studio as well. I got offered the role there as well. So I interviewed there and then I went to Tantalus, interviewed, both went well. I was offered the roles for both of them and ultimately ended up choosing Tantalus. And I'm really glad I did because it's just been fantastic to be back.
I've heard nothing but good things about Tantalus. Nothing but
Yeah.
good things.
No, that's good.
I've never heard anything bad about them.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. We keep a relatively low profile. We're not out there touting our name a lot, although that's happening a little bit more since we were acquired by Keyword Studios.
Yeah.
And it's important to promote yourself. I'm not saying that we're just in the dark, but yeah, like we've been around for nearly 30 years. Our first game was Stargate on the Super Nintendo in 1994. Yeah, so very rich history. And yeah, I've been lucky enough to follow their path, like kind of all the way along, and yeah, to just see them go from strength to strength and just reaching new heights all the time. So I was very disappointed when I took that role at 2K Australia, even though that is one of my favorite jobs as well. And I made a lot of good friends out of that. And to working on Borderlands, that was awesome too. But when that studio closed, I was like, man, I shouldn't have left Tantalus. Although if I didn't, maybe I wouldn't have moved into production. So
yeah, who knows? It all works out in the end. But there's something to be said about the fact that you've moved around so much and you're able to be so agile. Because it's not easy moving from city to city, or moving country in the event of New Zealand and then moving back.
No, it's not. And I'm over it. So
you're staying in Melbourne.
I am. I bought an apartment here in Preston in mid 2021, like the height of the pandemic, actually. So yeah, I'm here to stay. I love it here. Yeah, when I worked in Melbourne last, I loved it then. Yeah, the pandemic didn't help. Like it couldn't actually go out and do stuff, but you can now. And
yeah,
I think the city will get back to how it was. It's nearly there. And yeah, like yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way. But it doesn't mean I'm stuck here. Like it's not hard to hop a flight and go back to Brisbane or wherever to catch up with your family and friends. You just can't do it, I guess, as easily if you're not in the same state.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is tough, man, and it's a harsh reality of anyone in this industry. Like a lot of people not only struggle to find work, but and not only in this country. Like a lot of people have to go to other countries. like
Yeah.
America and that. Although we do have the tax break now. I don't think all states do, but Queensland does, at least, and that helps with retaining
Talent.
staff and talent. Yeah. So yeah,
I mean, you're pretty much echoing what other developers have said in terms of it, the harsh realities. They're working for a company and then they get laid off and all the moving around, jumping from city to city or state to
yeah,
state or country to
yeah,
country. So it takes
yeah,
it takes a certain type of character to be able to do that and still have high morale and energy. So
yeah, yeah, definitely. Like, I never thought in my career that I would be comfortable enough to purchase property and have a mortgage with such a volatile job, or at least as I knew it was. But yeah, Tantalus is mainstay. I'm got utter confidence, complete confidence that it'll be fine. And then it closes tomorrow. No.
touch wood, touch wood, cross fingers.
No.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, hey, I'll wrap up there. Thank you so much for taking time out. If anyone wants to stay in contact with you, with what you're up to, is there any way they can do that?
I'd say Twitter, actually. So yeah, Twitter's probably their best bet. And my Twitter handle is at Steve Judestorm. So I'll see you there.
All right, well, that is the show, everyone. Make sure you share, like, and subscribe. And until next time, stay safe.